Chapter 2. Hindu Scriptures. Sanskrit Literature. Sanskrit literature can be classified under 6 orthodox heads and 4 secular heads. The 6 orthodox sections form the authoritative scriptures of the Hindus. The 4 secular sections embody the later developments in classical Sanskrit literature. The 6 scriptures are 1. Shrutis, 2. Smritis, 3. Itihas, 4. Purans, 5. Agam, and 6. Darshans. The 4 secular writings are 1. Subhashita, 2. Kaviya, 3. Natak, and 4. Alankar. The Scriptures. The Shrutis. The Shrutis are called the Vedas, or the Umnaya. The Hindus have received their religion through revelation, the Vedas. These are direct intuitional revelations, and are held to be apurusaya, or entirely superhuman, without any author in particular. The Ved is the glorious pride of the Hindus, nay, of the whole world. The term Ved comes from the root vid, to know. The word Ved means knowledge. When it is applied to scripture, it signifies a book of knowledge. The Vedas are the foundational scriptures of the Hindus. The Ved is the source of the other 5 sets of scriptures, even of the secular and the materialistic. The Ved is the storehouse of Indian wisdom, and is a memorable glory which man can never forget till eternity. Revealed truths without beginning or end. The Vedas are the eternal truths revealed by God to the great ancient rishis of India. The word rishi means a seer from dris, to see. He is the mantra drashta, a seer of mantra or thought. The thought was not his own. The rishis saw the truths, or heard them. Therefore, the Vedas are what are heard, Shruti. The rishi did not write. He did not create it out of his mind. He was the seer of thought which existed already. He was only the spiritual discoverer of the thought. He is not the inventor of the Ved. The Vedas represent the spiritual experiences of the rishis of yore. The rishi is only a medium or an agent to transmit to people the intuitional experiences which he received. The truths of the Vedas are revelations. All the other religions of the world claim their authority as being delivered by special messengers of God to certain persons, but the Vedas do not owe their authority to anyone. They are themselves the authority as they are eternal, as they are the knowledge of the Lord. Lord Brahma, the Creator, imparted the divine knowledge to the rishis or seers. The rishis disseminated the knowledge. The Vedic rishis were great realized persons who had direct intuitive perception of Brahman or the truth. They were inspired writers. They built a simple, grand and perfect system of religion and philosophy from which the founders and teachers of all other religions have drawn their inspiration. The Vedas are the oldest books in the library of man. The truths contained in all religions are derived from the Vedas, and are ultimately traceable to the Vedas. The Vedas are the fountainhead of religion. The Vedas are the ultimate source to which all religious knowledge can be traced. Religion is of divine origin. It was revealed by God to man in the earliest times. It is embodied in the Vedas. The Vedas are eternal. They are without beginning and end. An ignorant man may say how a book can be without beginning or end. By the Vedas, no books are meant. Vedas came out of the breath of the Lord. They are the words of God. The Vedas are not the utterances of persons. They are not the composition of any human mind. They were never written, never created. They are eternal and impersonal. The date of the Vedas has never been fixed. It can never be fixed. Vedas are eternal spiritual truths. Vedas are an embodiment of divine knowledge. The books may be destroyed, but the knowledge cannot be destroyed. Knowledge is eternal. In that sense, the Vedas are eternal. The 4 Vedas and their subdivisions. The Ved is divided into 4 great books, the Rig Ved, the Yajur Ved, the Sam Ved, and the Athar Ved. The Yajur Ved is again divided into 2 parts, the Shukla and the Krishan. The Krishan or the Taittiriya is the older book, and the Shukla, or the Vajasnaya, is a later revelation to sage Yagna Valkya from the resplendent Surya Dev, sun god. The Rig Ved is divided into 21 sections, the Yajur Ved into 109 sections, the Sam Ved into 1,000 sections, and the Athar Ved into 50 sections. In all, the whole Ved is thus divided into 1,180 recensions. Each Ved consists of 4 parts: the mantra samhitas or hymns, the brahmanas or explanations of mantras or rituals, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads. The division of the Vedas into 4 parts is to suit the 4 stages in a man's life. The mantra samhitas are hymns in praise of the Vedic god for attaining material prosperity here and happiness hereafter. They are metrical poems comprising prayers, hymns and incantations addressed to various deities, both subjective and objective. The mantra portion of the Vedas is useful for the brahmacharine. The brahmana portions guide people to perform sacrificial rites. They are prose explanations of the method of using the mantras in the yajna, or the sacrifice. The brahmana portion is suitable for the householders. The Aranyakas are the forest books, the mystical sylvan texts, which give philosophical interpretations of the rituals. The Aranyakas are intended for the vanaprasthas or hermits who prepare themselves for taking sannyas. The Upanishads are the most important portion of the Vedas. The Upanishads contain the essence or the knowledge portion of the Vedas. The philosophy of the Upanishads is sublime, profound, lofty and soul-stirring. The Upanishads speak of the identity of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul. They reveal the most subtle and deep spiritual truths. The Upanishads are useful for the sannyasins. The subject matter of the whole Ved is divided into Karm Kand, Upasana Kand and Gyan Kand. The Karm Kand or ritualistic section deals with various sacrifices and rituals. The Upasana Kand or worship section deals with various kinds of worship or meditation. The Gyan Kand or knowledge section deals with the highest knowledge of Nirgun Brahman. The mantras and the brahmanas constitute Karm Kand, the Aranyakas Upasana Kand, and the Upanishads Gyan Kand. The mantra samhitas. The Rig Ved Samhita is the grandest book of the Hindus, the oldest and the best. It is the great Indian Bible, which no Hindu would forget to adore from the core of his heart. Its style, the language and the tone are most beautiful and mysterious. Its immortal mantras embody the greatest truths of existence, and it is perhaps the greatest treasure in all the scriptural literature of the world. Its priest is called the Hotri. The Yajur Ved Samhita is mostly in prose and is meant to be used by the Advaryu, the Yajur Vedic priest, for superfluous explanations of the rites and sacrifices, supplementing the Rig Vedic mantras. The Sam Ved Samhita is mostly borrowed from the Rig Vedic Samhita and is meant to be sung by the Odgatri, the Sam Vedic priest, in sacrifices. The Athar Ved Samhita is meant to be used by the Brahma, the Athar Vedic priest, to correct the mispronunciations and wrong performances that may accidentally be committed by the other 3 priests of the sacrifice. The Brahmins and the Aranyakas. There are 2 Brahmanas to the Rig Ved, the Aitareya and the Sankayana. The Rig Ved, says Max Muller, is the most ancient book of the world. The sacred hymns of the Brahmanas stand unparalleled in the literature of the whole world, and their preservation might well be called miraculous. History of ancient Sanskrit literature. The Sutpath Brahmana belongs to the Shukla Yajur Ved. The Krishan Yajur Ved has the Taittiriya and the Maitreyan Brahmanas. The Tandya or Panchavimsa, the Shadvimsa, the Kandogya, the Adbhut, the Urshiya, and the Upanishad Brahmans belong to the Sam Ved. The Brahman of the Athar Ved is called the Gopath. Each of the Brahmans has got an Aranyak. The Upanishads. The Upanishads are the concluding portions of the Vedas, or the end of the Vedas. The teaching based on them is called Vedant. The Upanishads are the gist and the goal of the Vedas. They form the very foundation of Hinduism. There are as many Upanishads to each Ved as there are sakas, branches, or recensions, i.e., 21, 109, 1050 respectively to the 4 Vedas, the Rig Ved, the Yajur Ved, the Sam Ved, and the Athar Ved. The different philosophers of India belonging to different schools, such as monism, qualified monism, dualism, pure monism, difference cum non-difference, etc., have acknowledged the supreme authority of the Upanishads. They have given their own interpretations, but they have obeyed the authority. They have built their philosophy on the foundation of the Upanishads. Even the Western scholars have paid their tribute to the seers of the Upanishads. At a time when the Westerners were clad in barks and were sunk in deep ignorance, the Upanishadic seers were enjoying the eternal bliss of the Absolute, and had the highest culture and civilization. The most important Upanishads are Isha, Kino, Katha, Prasna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Aitareya, Taittiriya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, Kaushitaki, and Svetasvatara, and Maitrayani. These are supremely authoritative. May the fundamental truths of the Vedas be revealed unto you all, like the Amalika fruit in the palm of your hand. May Gayatri, the blessed mother of the Vedas, impart to you the milk of knowledge, the ancient wisdom of the Upanishads. The Upavedas. There are 4 Upavedas or subsidiary Vedas, viz., the Ayurveda, the Dhanurveda, the Gandharv Veda, and the Arthasastra, forming auxiliaries to the 4 Vedas, which mean, respectively, the science of health, the science of war, the science of music, and the science of polity. The Vedang. There are 6 angs or explanatory limbs to the Vedas: the Siksha and Vyakran of Panini, the Chandas of Pingalacharya, the Nirukt of Yask, the Jyotish of Garg, and the Kalpas, Srauta, Griya, Dharm and Sulba, belonging to the authorship of various rishis. Siksha is a knowledge of phonetics. Siksha deals with pronunciation and accent. The text of the Vedas is arranged in various forms or paths. The Padpath gives each word its separate form. The Kramapath connects the word in pairs. Vyakran is Sanskrit grammar. Panini's books are most famous. Without knowledge of Vyakran, you cannot understand the Vedas. Chandas is meter dealing with prosody. Nirukt is philology or etymology. Jyotish is astronomy and astrology. It deals with the movements of the heavenly bodies, planets, etc., and their influence in human affairs. Kalp is the method of ritual. The Srot Sutras which explain the ritual of sacrifices belong to Kalp. The Sulba Sutras which treat of the measurements which are necessary for laying out the sacrificial areas, also belong to Kalp. The Griya Sutras which concern domestic life, and the Dharm Sutras which deal with ethics, customs and laws, also belong to Kalp. The Pratishakis, Padpathas, Kraumpathas, Uplekas, Anukramanis, Devutsamhitas, Parishishtas, Prahyogs, Paddhati, Karika, Kilas, and Vayuhas are further elaborations in the rituals of the Kalp Sutras. Among the Kalp Sutras, the Asavayan, Sankhyan, and the Sambhavi belong to the Rig Veda. The Mashuka, Ladayan, Drayan, Gobila, and Kadira belong to the Sam Veda. The Kotyan and Paraskar belong to the Shukla Yajur Veda. The Apastam, Hiranyakashi, Bodhyayan, Bharadvaj, Manav, Vaikansa, and the Kauthuka belong to the Krishan Yajur Veda. The Vaitan and the Kaushik belong to the Athur Veda. The Smritis. Next in importance to the Sruti are the Smritis or secondary scriptures. These are the ancient sacred law codes of the Hindus dealing with the Sanatan Varnashram Dharm. They supplement and explain the ritualistic injunctions called Vidas in the Vedas. The Smriti Sastra is founded on the Shruti. The Smritis are based on the teachings of the Vedas. The Smriti stands next in authority to the Shruti. It explains and develops Dharm. It lays down the laws which regulate Hindu national, social, family and individual obligations. The works which are expressly called Smritis are the law books, Dharm Sastras. Smriti, in a broader sense, covers all Hindu Sastras save the Vedas. The laws for regulating Hindu society from time to time are codified in the Smritis. The Smritis have laid down definite rules and laws to guide the individuals and communities in their daily conduct, and to regulate their manners and customs. The Smritis have given detailed instructions, according to the conditions of the time, to all classes of men regarding their duties in life. The Hindu learns how he has to spend his whole life from these Smritis. The duties of Varnashram and all ceremonies are clearly given in these books. The Smritis prescribe certain acts and prohibit some others for a Hindu, according to his birth and stage of life. The object of the Smritis is to purify the heart of man, and take him gradually to the supreme abode of immortality, and make him perfect and free. These Smritis have varied from time to time. The injunctions and prohibitions of the Smritis are related to the particular social surroundings. As these surroundings and essential conditions of the Hindu society changed from time to time, new Smritis had to be compiled by the sages of different ages and different parts of India. The celebrated Hindu lawgivers. From time to time, a great lawgiver would take his birth. He would codify the existing laws and remove those which had become obsolete. He would make some alterations, adaptations, readjustments, additions and subtractions, to suit the needs of the time and see that the way of living of the people would be in accordance with the teachings of the Ved. Of such lawgivers, Manu, Yajnavalkya and Parasar are the most celebrated persons. Hindu society is founded on, and governed by, the laws made by these three great sages. The Smritis are named after them. We have Manu Smriti or Manav Dharmsastra, the laws of Manu, or the institutes of Manu, Yajnavalkya Smriti, and Parasar Smriti. Manu is the greatest lawgiver of the race. He is the oldest lawgiver as well. The Yajnavalkya Smriti follows the same general lines as the Manu Smriti, and is next in importance to it. Manu Smriti and Yajnavalkya Smriti are universally accepted at the present time as authoritative works. All over India, Yajnavalkya Smriti is chiefly consulted in all matters of Hindu law. Even the government of India are applying some of these laws. There are 18 main Smritis or Dharmsastras. The most important are those of Manu, Yajnavalkya and Parasar. The other 15 are those of Vishnu, Daksh, Samvarta, Vyas, Harita, Satatapa, Vasish, Yama, Apastamba, Gautam, Devala, Sankalikit, Usan, Atri and Sanak. The laws of Manu are intended for the Satya Yuga, those of Yajnavalkya are for the Treta Yuga, those of Sanka and Likit are for the Dvapar Yuga, and those of Parasar are for the Kali Yuga. The laws and rules which are based entirely upon our social positions, time and clime, must change with the changes in society and changing conditions of time and clime. Then only the progress of the Hindu society can be ensured. Need for a new law code. It is not possible to follow some of the laws of Manu at the present time. We can follow their spirit and not the letter. Society is advancing. When it advances, it outgrows certain laws which were valid and helpful at a particular stage of its growth. Many new things which were not thought out by the old lawgivers have come into existence now. It is no use insisting people to follow now those old laws which have become obsolete. Our present society has considerably changed. A new Smriti to suit the requirements of this age is very necessary. Another sage will place before the Hindus of our days a new suitable code of laws. Time is ripe for a new Smriti. Cordial greetings to this age. The inner voice of Dharm. He who is endowed with a pure heart through protracted tapas, jap, kirtan, meditation and service of Guru, and who has a very clear conscience, can be guided by the inner voice in matters of dharma or duty or moral action. The inner voice that proceeds from a clean heart filled with sattva is, indeed, the voice of God or soul or antaryamin or inner ruler. This voice is more than Smriti. It is Smriti of Smritis. Purify your heart and train yourself to hear this inner voice. Keep your ear in tune with the voice. The Shruti and the Smriti. The Shruti and the Smriti are the two authoritative sources of Hinduism. Shruti literally means what is heard, and Smriti means what is remembered. Shruti is revelation and Smriti is tradition. Upanishad is a Shruti. Bhagavad Gita is a Smriti. Shruti is direct experience. Great rishis heard the eternal truths of religion and left a record of them for the benefit of posterity. These records constitute the Vedas. Hence, Shruti is primary authority. Smriti is a recollection of that experience. Hence, it is secondary authority. The Smritis or Dharmsastras also are books written by sages, but they are not the final authority. If there is anything in a Smriti which contradicts the Smriti is to be rejected. The Itihasas. The friendly treatises and the commanding treatises. There are 4 books under this heading: the Valmiki Ramayana, the Yog Vasish, the Mahabharata and the Harivamsa. These embody all that is in the Vedas but only in a simpler manner. These are called the Surat Samhitas or the friendly treatises, while the Vedas are called the Prabhu Samhitas or the commanding treatises with great authority. These works explain the great universal truths in the form of historical narratives, stories and dialogues. These are very interesting volumes and are liked by all, from the inquisitive child to the intellectual scholar. The Itihasas give us beautiful stories of absorbing interest and importance, through which all the fundamental teachings of Hinduism are indelibly impressed on one's mind. The laws of Smritis and the principles of the Vedas are stamped firmly on the minds of the Hindus through the noble and marvelous deeds of their great national heroes. We get a clear idea of Hinduism from these sublime stories. The common man cannot comprehend the high abstract philosophy of the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras. Hence, the compassionate sages Valmiki and Vyas wrote the Itihasas for the benefit of common people. The same philosophy is presented with analogies and parables in a tasteful form to the common run of mankind. The two well-known Itihas histories are the epics, Mahakavyas, Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are two very popular and useful sastras of the Hindus. The Ramayana was written by the sage Valmiki, and the Mahabharata by Vyas. The Ramayana, the Adi Kavya or the first epic poem, relates the story of Sri Ram, the ideal man. It is the history of the family of the solar race descended from Ikshvaku, in which was born Sri Ramachandra, the avatar of Lord Vishnu, and his three brothers. The ideal characters like Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Bharat and Sri Hanuman that we find in Ramayana firmly establish Hindu Dharm in our minds. The story of the birth of Ram and his brothers, their education and marriages, the exile of Sri Ram, the carrying off and recovery of Sita, his wife, the destruction of Ravan, the Rakshas king of Lanka, and the reign of Sri Ram, are described in detail in Ramayana. How a man should behave towards his superiors, equals and inferiors, how a king ought to rule his kingdom, how a man should lead his life in this world, how he can obtain his release, freedom and perfection, may be learnt from this excellent epic. The Ramayana gives a vivid picture of Indian life. Even today our domestic, social and national ideals are copied from the noble characters in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The great national heroes stand even today as beacon lights to guide and inspire the people of the whole world. The lives of Ram, Bharat and Lakshman provide a model of fraternal affection and mutual service. Sri Hanuman stands as an ideal unique Karma Yogan. The life of Sita is regarded as the most perfect example of womanly fidelity, chastity and sweetness. The Ramayana is written in 24,000 verses by Sri Valmiki. The Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is the history of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. It gives a description of the Great War, the Battle of Kurukshetra, which broke out between the Kauravas and the Pandavas who were cousins and descendants of the lunar race. The Mahabharata is an encyclopedia of Hindu Dharm. It is rightly called the fifth Ved. There is really no theme in religion, philosophy, mysticism and polity which this great epic does not touch and expound. It contains very noble moral teachings, useful lessons of all kinds, many beautiful stories and episodes, discourses, sermons, parables and dialogues which set forth the principles of morals and metaphysics. The Pandavas obtained victory through the grace of Lord Krishna. The Mahabharata is written in 100,000 verses by Sri Krishna Vaipayana Vyas. The Bhagavad Gita. The most important part of the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita. It is a marvelous dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, before the commencement of the Great War. Bhagwan Sri Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna. Sri Krishna explained the essentials of Hindu religion to Arjuna. Just as the Upanishads contain the cream of the Vedas, so does the Gita contain the cream of the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the cows. Lord Krishna is the cowherd. Arjuna is the calf. The Gita is the milk. The wise men are those who drink the milk of the Gita. The Gita is the most precious jewel of Hindu literature. It is a universal gospel. The Gita teaches the yoga of synthesis. It ranks high in the religious literature of the world. Arjuna saw before him his dear relatives and teachers in the battlefield. He fainted and refused to fight against them. Then Lord Krishna imparted knowledge of the self to Arjuna and convinced him that it was his duty to fight regardless of consequences. Afterwards Arjuna gave up his moh, or delusion. All his doubts were cleared. He fought against the Kauravas and achieved victory. Knowledge of ancient Indian history and culture. The Mahabharata contains also the immortal discourse of Bhishma on Dharm, which he gave to Yudhishthira when he was lying on the bed of arrows. The whole Mahabharata forms an encyclopedia of history, morals, and religion unsurpassed by any other epic in the world. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata speak to us clearly about the ancient India, about her people, her customs, her ways of living, her arts, her civilization and culture, her manufactures, etc. If you read these two books, you will come to know how great India once was, and you will be inspired to make her great once more. No other country has produced so many great men, great teachers, great yogins, great rishis, great prophets, great acharyas, great kings, great heroes, great statesmen, great patriots, and great benefactors as India. The more you know of India and Hinduism, the more you will honor and love it. And the more thankful to the Lord you will be that you were born in India as a Hindu. Glory to India! Glory to Hinduism! Glory to the seers of the Upanishads! Glory, glory to Lord Krishna, the author of the song divine, Bhagavad Gita. The Purans. The Purans are of the same class as the Itihas. They have 5 characteristics, Panch Lakshan, viz., history, cosmology, with various symbolical illustrations of philosophical principles, secondary creation, genealogy of kings and of manvantars. All the Purans belong to the class of Shrit Samhitas. Vyas is the compiler of the Purans from age to age, and for this age, he is Krishna Vaipayana, the son of Parasar. The Purans were written to popularize the religion of the Vedas. They contain the essence of the Vedas. The aim of the Purans is to impress on the minds of the masses the teachings of the Vedas and to generate in them devotion to God through concrete examples, myths, stories, legends, lives of saints, kings and great men, allegories and chronicles of great historical events. The sages made use of these things to illustrate the eternal principles of religion. The Purans were meant, not for the scholars, but for the ordinary people who could not understand high philosophy, and who could not study the Vedas. The darsans are very stiff. They are meant only for the learned few. The Purans are meant for the masses with inferior intellect. Religion is taught in a very easy and interesting way through these Purans. Even to this day, the Purans are popular. The Purans contain the history of remote times. They also give a description of the regions of the universe not visible to the ordinary physical eye. They are very interesting to read and are full of information of all kinds. Children hear the stories from their grandmothers. Pundits and Purohits hold kathas in temples, on banks of rivers, and in other important places. Agriculturists, laborers and bazaar people hear the stories. The 18 Purans. There are 18 main Purans and an equal number of subsidiary Purans or Upapuran. The main Purans are Vishnu Puran, Narudaya Puran, Srimad Bhagavat Puran, Garuda, Suparna Puran, Padma Puran, Vara Puran, Brahm Puran, Brahman Puran, Brahma Vaivart Puran, Markandeya Puran, Bhavishya Puran, Vaman Puran, Matsya Puran, Kurma Puran, Ling Puran, Shiv Puran, Skand Puran and Agni Puran. Of these, 6 are Sattvic Purans and glorify Vishnu, 6 are Rajasic and glorify Brahma, 6 are Tamasic and they glorify Shiva. Neophytes or beginners in the spiritual path are puzzled when they go through Shiva Puran and Vishnu Puran. In Shiva Puran, Lord Shiva is highly eulogized and an inferior position is given to Lord Vishnu. Sometimes Vishnu is belittled. In Vishnu Puran, Lord Hari is highly eulogized and an inferior status is given to Lord Shiva. Sometimes Lord Shiva is belittled. This is only to increase the faith of the devotees in their particular Ishtavta. Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu are one. The best among the Purans are the Srimad Bhagavat and the Vishnu Puran. The most popular is the Srimad Bhagavat Puran. Next comes Vishnu Puran. A portion of the Markandeya Puran is well known to all Hindus as Chandi, or Devi Mahatmya. Worship of God as the Divine Mother is its theme. Chandi is read widely by the Hindus on sacred days and Navratri, Durga Puja, days. The Srimad Bhagavad Puran and the 10 avatars. The Srimad Bhagavad Puran is a chronicle of the various avatars of Lord Vishnu. There are 10 avatars of Vishnu. The aim of every avatar is to save the world from some great danger, to destroy the wicked and protect the virtuous. The 10 avatars are Matsya, the fish, Kurm, the tortoise, Varha, the boar, Narasimha, the man-lion, Vamana, the dwarf, Parasuram, Ram with the axe, the destroyer of the Kshatriya race, Ramchandra, the hero of Ramayana the son of Dashrath, who destroyed Ravan, Sri Krishna, the teacher of the Gita, Buddha, the prince ascetic, founder of Buddhism, and Kalki, the hero riding on a white horse, who is to come at the end of the Kali Yuga. The object of the Matsya avatar was to save Vivasvat Manu from destruction by a deluge. The object of Kurma avatar was to enable the world to recover some precious things which were lost in the deluge. The Kurma gave its back for keeping the churning rod when the gods and the Asuras churned the ocean of milk. The purpose of Vara avatar was to rescue, from the waters, the earth which had been dragged down by a demon named Hiranyaksh. The purpose of Narasimha avatar, half lion and half man, was to free the world from the oppression of Hiranyakasipu, a demon, the father of Bhakta Prahlad. The object of Vamana avatar was to restore the power of the gods, which had been eclipsed by the penance and devotion of King Bali. The object of Parsuram avatar was to deliver the country from the oppression of the Kshatriya rulers. Parsuram destroyed the Kshatriya race 21 times. The object of Ram was to destroy the wicked Ravan. The object of Sri Krishna avatar was to destroy Kans and other demons, to deliver his wonderful message of the Gita in the Mahabharat war, and to become the center of the Bhakti schools of India. The object of Buddha avatar was to prohibit animal sacrifices and teach piety. The object of the Kalki avatar is the destruction of the wicked and the re-establishment of virtue. The Tamil Purans. Lord Shiva incarnated himself in the form of Dakshin Murti to impart knowledge to the 4 Kumars. He took human form to initiate Sambandhar Manikavasagar Patinathar. He appeared in flesh and blood to help his devotees and relieve their sufferings. The divine Leelas of Lord Shiva are recorded in the Tamil Purans like Shiva Puran, Paraya Puran, Shiva Parakramam and Tiruvilayudal Puran. The Upapuran. The 18 Upapurans are Sanatkumar, Narasimha, Brihanaradiya, Shivarahasya, Durvasa, Kapil, Vaman, Bhargav, Varun, Kalika, Samba, Nandi, Surya, Parasar, Vasishtha, Devi Bhagavat, Ganesh and Hamsa. Utility of the Puran. Study of the Purans, listening to sacred recitals of scriptures, describing and expounding of the transcendent Leelas of the blessed Lord. These form an important part of sadhana of the Lord's devotees. It is most pleasing to the Lord. Sravan is a part of Navidya Bhakti. Kalthas and Upanyas open the springs of devotion in the hearts of hearers, and develop Prem Bhakti which confers immortality on the Jeev. The language of the Vedas is archaic, and the subtle philosophy of Vedanta and the Upanishads is extremely difficult to grasp and assimilate. Hence, the Purans are of special value, as they present philosophical truths and precious teachings in an easier manner. They give ready access to the mysteries of life and the key to bliss. Imbibe their teachings. Start a new life of Dharmnishtha and Adhyatmic sadhana from this very day. The Agam. Another class of popular scriptures are the Agams. The Agams are theological treatises and practical manuals of divine worship. The Agams include the Tantras, Mantras and Yantras. These are treatises explaining the external worship of God in idols, temples, etc. All the Agamas treat of 1. Gyan or knowledge, 2. Yoga or concentration, 3. Kriya or esoteric ritual, and 4. Charya or exoteric worship. They also give elaborate details about ontology and cosmology, liberation, devotion, meditation, philosophy of mantras, mystic diagrams, charms and spells, temple building, image making, domestic observances, social rules, public festivals, etc. The Agams are divided into three sections: the Vaishnav, the Saiva and the Shakta. The three chief sects of Hinduism, viz., Vaishnavism, Saivism and Shaktism, base their doctrines and dogmas on their respective Agamas. The Vaishnava Agam or Panchratra Agams glorify God as Vishnu. The Saiva Agamas glorify God as Shiva, and have given rise to an important school of philosophy known as Saiva Siddhant, which prevails in South India, particularly in the districts of Tirunelveli and Madurai. The Shakta Agams or Tantras glorify God as the mother of the universe, under one of the many names of Devi. The Agams do not derive their authority from the Vedas, but are not antagonistic to them. They are all Vedic in spirit and character. That is the reason why they are regarded as authoritative. The Vaishnava Agams. The Vaishnava Agams are of four kinds: the Vaikanas, Panchratra, Pratyeshthasar and Vijayan Lalita. The Brahma, Saiva Kaumara, Vasishtha, Kapil, Gautamiya, and the Naradiya are the 7 groups of the Panchratras. The Naradiya section of the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata is the earliest source of information about the Panchratras. Vishnu is the supreme lord in the Panchratra Agams. The Vaishnavas regard the Panchratra Agams to be the most authoritative. They believe that these Agams were revealed by Lord Vishnu himself. Narad Panchratra says, everything from Brahma to a blade of grass is Lord Krishan. This corresponds to the Upanishadic declaration, all this is, verily, Brahman Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. There are 215 of these Vaishnava texts. Ishvar, Ahayarbudnaya, Pashkar, Parma, Satvata, Brihad Brahma, and Ganridasar Samhitas are the important ones. The Saiva Agams. The Shaivas recognize 28 Agamas, of which the chief is Kamaka. The Agamas are also the basis of Kashmir Saivism, which is called the Pratbhaujna system. The latter works of Pratbhaujna system show a distinct leaning to Advaitism. The Southern Saivism, i.e., Saiva Siddhanta, and the Kashmir Saivism, regard these Agamas as their authority, besides the Vedas. Each Agama has Upa-Agamas. Of these, only fragmentary texts of 20 are extant. Lord Shiv is the central god in the Saiva Agamas. They are suitable to this age, Kali Yuga. They are open to all castes and both the sexes. The Shakt Agamas. There is another group of scriptures known as the Tantras. They belong to the Shakt cult. They glorify Shakti as the world mother. They dwell on the Shakti, energy, aspect of God and prescribe numerous courses of ritualistic worship of the Divine Mother in various forms. There are 77 Agams. These are very much like the Purans in some respects. The texts are usually in the form of dialogues between Shiva and Parvati. In some of these, Shiva answers the questions put by Parvati, and in others, Parvati answers Shiva questioning. Mahanirvan, Kulurnva, Kulsara, Pra Panchasara, Tantraraj, Rudra Yumla, Brahma Yumla, Vishnu Yumla, and Todla Tantra are the important works. The Agams teach several occult practices, some of which confer powers, while the others bestow knowledge and freedom. Sakti is the creative power of Lord Shiva. Shaktism is really a supplement to Shaivism. Among the existing books on the Agams, the most famous are the Ishvar Samhita, Ahayarbudh Nyaya Samhita, Sanatkumar Samhita, Narad Panchratra, Spanda Pradipika, and the Maha Nirvan Tantra. The 6 Darsans. These are the intellectual section of the Hindu writings, while the first 4 are intuitional, and the 5th inspirational and emotional. Darsans are schools of philosophy based on the Vedas. The Agams are theological. The Darsan literature is philosophical. The Darsans are meant for the erudite scholars who are endowed with acute acumen, good understanding, power of reasoning and subtle intellect. The Itihas, Purans and Agamas are meant for the masses. The Darsans appeal to the intellect, while the Itihasas, Purans, etc., appeal to the heart. Philosophy has 6 divisions. Shaud Darsan. The 6 Darsans, or ways of seeing things, usually called the 6 systems or 6 different schools of thought. The 6 schools of philosophy are the 6 instruments of true teaching, or the 6 demonstrations of truth. Each school has developed, systematized and correlated the various parts of the Ved in its own way. Each system has its sutrakar, i.e., the one great rishi who systematized the doctrines of the school and put them in short aphorisms or sutra. The sutra are terse and laconic. The rishis have condensed their thoughts in the aphorisms. It is very difficult to understand them without the help of commentaries by great sages or rishis. Hence, there arose many commentators or bhashyakars. There are glosses, notes and, later, commentaries on the original commentaries. The Shaud Darsans, the 6 schools of philosophy, or the Sastras are, the Nyaya, founded by Gautam Rishi, the Vaiseshika by Kanada Rishi, the Sankhya by Kapil Muni, the Yoga by Patanjali Maharshi, the Purva Mimamsa by Jaimini, and the Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta by Badarayana or Vyas. The Darsans are divided into 3 pairs of aphoristic compositions which explain the philosophy of the Vedas in a rationalistic method of approach. They are, the Nyaya and the Vaiseshika, the Sankhya and the Yoga, and the Mimamsa and the Vedanta. Each set of sutras has got its bhashya, vritti, vartik, vyakyan or tika and tipani. Sutra. Svalpaksharamasandigdam. Saravadvisvatomukam. Astabhamanavadiam cha. Sutram sutravito vidu. A sutra or an aphorism is a short formula with the least possible number of letters, without any ambiguity or doubtful assertion, containing the very essence, embracing all meanings, without any stop or obstruction and absolutely faultless in nature. The sutrakar or the composer of the aphorisms is said to be as happy as one would be while getting the first male child, if he is but able to reduce one letter in his abstruse sutra of far-fetched words and ideas. The best example of the greatest, the tersest, and the most perfect of sutra literature is the series of aphorisms called the Ashtadhyayi composed by Panini. Panini is the father of all sutrakars from whom all others seem to have borrowed the method of composition. The sutras are meant to explain a big volume of knowledge in short assertions suitable to be kept in memory at all times. The 6 Vedangas and the 6 systems of Hindu philosophy form the 12 sets of sutra literature of the world. In addition to these, there are later compositions like the Narad Bhakti Sutras, the Sandilaya Bhakti Sutras, etc., which also wish to assume an equal form with the famous sutras mentioned above. Bhashya. Sutrartho Varniyat Yatra. Padai Sutranuzaribi. Spapadani Cha Varnyant. Bhashyam Bhashya Vito Vidu. A bhashya is an elaborate exposition, a commentary on the sutras, with word-by-word meaning of the aphoristic precepts, their running translation together with the individual views of the commentator or the bhashyakar. The best and the exemplary bhashya in Sanskrit literature is the one written by Patanjali on the Vyakyan Sutras of Panini. This bhashya is so very famous and important that it is called the Mahabhashya, and its celebrated author is specially called the Bhasyakar. Patanjali is the father of bhashyakars. The next important bhashya is the one on the Mimamsa Sutras written by Sabar Swamin, who learnt the art from Patanjali's commentary. The third important bhashya was written by Adi Shankar on the Brahma Sutras, in close following with the Sabar bhashya. The bhashyas on the 6 sets of aphorisms dealing with Indian philosophy were written by Vatsyayan, Prasastpad, Vijayan, Bhikshu, Vyas, Sabar and Shankar. On the Vedanta or Brahma Sutras, there are about 16 bhashyas, like those of Ramanuj, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka, etc. Vritti Sadvriti Sanabandhana. A vritti is a short gloss explaining the aphorisms in a more elaborate way, but not as extensively as a bhashya. An example is Bodhayan's vritti on the Brahma Sutras. Vartika. Uktanik Tadaruktanam. Shinta Yatra Pravartate. Tam Grantham Vartikam Praho. Vartikajnavachakana. A vartik is a work where a critical study is made of that which is said and left unsaid or imperfectly said in a bhashya, and the ways of making it perfect by supplying the omissions therein are given. Examples are the Vartikas of Katyayana on Panini's Sutras, of Sureshvar on Adi Sankar's Upanishad Bhashyas, and of Kumarila Bhatt on the Sabar Bhashya on the Karma Mimamsa. Vyakyan or Tika. A Vyakyan is a running explanation in an easier language of what is said in the original, with little elucidations here and there. A Vyakyan, particularly of a kavya, deals with 8 different modes of dissection of the sloka, like Padcheta, Vigraha, Sandhi, Alankar, Anuvad, etc. This forms an important aspect in the study of Sanskrit Sahitya Sastra. An Anuvyakyan like the one written by Sri Madhva is a repetition of what is already written but in greater detail. An Anuvad is merely a running translation or statement of an abstruse text of the original. Tika is only another name for Vyakyan. The best Vyakyans are of Vachaspati Mishra on the Darsans, especially on Adi Sankar's Brahma Sutra Bhashya. Tippani. Tippani is just like a Vritti, but is less orthodox than the Vritti. It is an explanation of difficult words or phrases occurring in the original. Examples are Kayada's gloss on the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, Nagojabhata's gloss on Kayada's gloss, or Apaya's gloss on Amalananda's gloss on the Bhamati of Vachaspati Mishra. Other scriptures. The Tavaram and the Tiravachakam, which are the hymns of the Saiva saints of South India, the Divya Prabandham of the Alvar saints of South India, the songs of Kabir, the Abhangas of Tukaram, and the Ramayan of Tulasi Das, all of which are the outpourings of great realized souls or wonderful scriptures. They contain the essence of the Vedas. The secular writings. The Subhashitas. The Subhashitas are wise sayings, instructions and stories, either in poetry or in prose. Examples are Bhartrihari's 3 centuries of verses, the Subhashita Ratnabandagara and Somadeva Bhatta's Kathasarith Sagara, or Kshemendra's Brihat Kathamanjari. The Panchatantra and the Hitopadesa also belong to this category. The Kavyas. These are highly scholarly compositions in poetry, prose, or both. The greatest of poetical kavyas are those of Kalidas, the Raghavamsa and Kumarasambhava, Bharvi, the Kiritarjunya, Magha, the Sisupalavada, Sri Harsha, the Nishada. The best prose kavyas in the whole of Sanskrit literature were written by Bhattabana, the Kadambari and Harshakarita, the great genius in classical Sanskrit. Among those containing both poetry and prose, the Champu Ramayan and the Champu Bharat are most famous. These are all wonderful masterpieces which will ever remain to glorify India's literary caliber. The Natak. These are marvelously scholastic dramas embodying the ras of Sringer, Vira, Karuna, Adbhat, Hausya, Bhayanaka, Bhaibhatsa and Raudra. It is told that none can write on the 9th ras, viz., Santi. It is attainable only on final liberation. The best dramas are written by Kalidas, Sakuntala, Bhavbhuti, Uttararamcharita, and Visikadatta, Mudrarakshasa. The Alankars. These are grand rhetorical texts, treating of the science of perfection and beauty of ornamental language and of effective composition with elegance and force, both in poetry and in prose. These are the fundamentals of Sanskrit Sahitya, even superior to the Kavyas and the Nataks. The best Alankar Granthas are those of Mamata, Kavya Prakash, and Jagannath, Ras Gangadhar. Conclusion. These constitute the entirety of Sanskrit literature, sacred and secular. The Sruti is the root, the Smritis, Itihasas and Purans are the trunk, the Agams and Darsans are the branches, and the Subhashita, Kavyas, Nataks and Alankars are the flowers of the tree of India's culture. The Smritis, the Itihasas, the Purans, the Agams and the Darsans are only developments of the Ved. Their ultimate source is the Ved. Their one common aim is to enable man to annihilate his ignorance, and attain perfection, freedom, immortality and eternal bliss through knowledge of God or the Eternal. Their purpose is to make man like God and one with him.
We dedicate our work to the Vedic rishis and gurus who passed the ancient knowledge and wisdom for the benefit of humanity through Vedic Samhita and Dharm, Hinduism. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to our channel and share our content through Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Quora, Instagram, etc. Please visit DHARMYOG.COM for